Welcome to episode 79 of The Place of Sound. I'm your host, Natalie Hall. The Place of Sound is a show that explores the theme of space or social geography using sound and listening. This is done through a variety of audio media production formats, so you can expect to do a few different types of listening in a single show. Episodes consist of what we refer to as audio portraits, or oral history-style interviews that explore topics of home, soundscape compositions, which use everyday sounds to communicate the personal and social significance of a given place, and we typically end the episode with a short documentary-style piece that explores the place-based identity of the producer. The aim with these projects is to allow the producer to think about the places that made them who they are today. These are the types of projects you can expect to hear on The Place of Sound, and all of them are produced by students here at Carleton University. They're what gets produced in Comms 4501 Digital Media Production, a fourth-year workshop course in the Communications and Media Studies program. Welcome back, everyone, to The Place of Sound and to the new year. We took a little break over the holidays, but I really am so happy to be back behind the microphone, and I'm really excited for this episode. I'm a big fan of the new year. I get really into resolutions, reinventing myself, becoming a whole new person. But a big part of that is reflecting on the previous year you had. So we will have lots of new student work to bring you soon, but I wanted to continue our retrospective of the work that's been aired in 2024. If you didn't listen to our last episode, we took a look at the non-student work we had aired on The Place of Sound in 2024. If you want to check the last episode out, you can find it on our website at The Place of Sound or wherever you get your podcasts. And for now, here's a little teaser. I really do feel so lucky to have these episodes as little checkpoints throughout the year. I feel that it's a very rare kind of personal archive, and it's the very cool thing about sound. It triggers your memory. I hear my voice in these clips and the voices of guests, and I am transported back in time. I can place myself in the spaces in which interviews took place or in which I was recording narration. For example, listening back, I can remember nervously shifting on my feet doing the tonal meditation with Anne Bourne, or sitting in the passenger seat of George's beat-up rental car, rolling up the manual windows with both hands as this wind tunnel just absolutely annihilated the sound quality. And I referred to this listening as a trip down memory lane, not only to be cheesy, but also to refer to a real sound practice that is discussed a lot in sound studies. What we have done here is a sort of sound walk, although we are not physically walking. And Jennifer Shine discusses this in Movement, Memory, and the Senses in Soundscape Studies, saying, "By walking, we are in a dialogue with the environment. Both literally and figuratively, we resituate ourselves into our story. Sound walking is an exploration of sound with the intent of active listening, hearing all environmental sounds while moving in and throughout the environment. It is not just the act of walking, but the embodiment of the walk, or the emplacement of the walk, that re-evokes our remembering. Memory is not merely activated through the visual surveillance of landscape, but by our interrelated perceptual understandings and bodily movements, of being in and engaging with the physical and sensory environment. This includes our oral perception and other sensory outlets. And of course, here Shine references our physical environment as strongly enmeshed with our auditory environment. However, even a cyber sound walk can evoke strong memories, just as this retrospective has for me, and hopefully for you as listeners. Another very common example of a cyber sound walk is Spotify Wrapped, which for anyone who doesn't know, is a roundup of your most listened to songs, artists, albums, podcasts, etc. Although I am very skeptical of the algorithm that is used to create the Wrapped, I still listen to my top songs of 2024 and I can feel the seasons changing. Like last November, for example. While not the physically darkest month of the year, it was very challenging vibe-wise. And it always is a very angsty time of the year for me, which means I'm listening to a lot of Mom. But this episode will be the first in a 3-part retrospective, looking back at the student work of 2024, one project type at a time. And today, we're starting with audio portraits. Audio portraits are an interview-based project. These interviews last about 20 minutes, and in the original recording, 2 voices are audible. The interviewer, who's asking the questions, and the interviewee, who of course responds to them. These interviews are then edited down to a 2 to 3 minute piece where the interviewer removes their own voice to give the illusion of a monologue. The aim is to develop a single cohesive story using as much of the interview as necessary. The result is that the interviewee is framed, so to speak, using sound. And then what you have is an audio portrait. So in this episode, we'll be playing several audio portraits aired in 2024. 4 in total, to be exact. And they are the following: Aidan Donnelly, Hometown; Jannelle Hamstra, Cell Memory; Jake Andrews, Men of Nature; and Natalia Saghbini, As Long as I'm With My Family. Each student will jump in to offer a quick introduction to their piece before we listen to it, to give a sense of whose voice you'll be hearing and what the conversation will be about. So, without further ado, from episode 60, here is Cell Memory, a conversation between Jannelle and her manager about place-based identity that lives on in our body. Take it away, Jannelle.
Hi, my name is Jannelle. I'm in my 4th year at Carleton University, where I've been studying communications and media. In this audio portrait, you'll hear that home is not just a place, an object, a person, or a feeling, but it's built into our cells and it's part of us. You'll be hearing from Sylvie, my manager in a corporate work environment, my friend, and one of my favorite storytellers. Listen as she tells the exciting tale of how she discovered home on the Camino de Santiago and confirmed it with a DNA test.
But in my heart, it felt every time that I went to Spain, and especially when I did my first walking across Spain, you can't get closer to the earth than walking on it. It just seemed like I knew I had to be there. But to be in a foreign place, to get such a strong, heartfelt, I should be here, that was the only place. And I've traveled to altogether 34 countries, and I've never felt that way. We went back in 78 and 79. I felt the same way. I went back in 2011 to start doing the Camino de Santiago, which is a pilgrimage of 800 kilometers. And again, it was a distinct feeling of, I feel like I belong here, like I should be here. So about 3 years ago, Ancestry offered a testing for DNA to find out what your ancestry was. My mom is from Ireland and England, and my father was from France. So I was pretty shocked when I opened the report, and it said that my biggest clump of ancestry markers were from the Iberic Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal. But it also is comforting that somehow I didn't arrive on the Camino situation because I wanted to do the Camino. It came about by some really strange coincidence, which makes me think that there's more to what's going on and my connection to Spain. So I'm glad I made it, and I'm much more aware. So when I do go, I really listen to my heart and my feelings and try to figure out what it was or where I was or where my ancestors were. This memory from ancestors to ancestors really stay. They say that the body has memories, the cells have memories. I continue. I read in Spanish. I listen to music in Spanish. I talk to my best friend in Spanish when I feel like I need to speak Spanish because I miss it. It's part of me.
Thank you so much, Jannelle. I've always wanted to do the Camino de Santiago, and even without a Spanish ancestry, everybody I've talked to who's done it has a very spiritual experience. So if you're into pilgrimages, walking, Spain, you should definitely look into it. Next up, from episode 62, Men of Nature, in which Jake takes us to a hunting lodge and discusses creating home through friendship and shared space, all through the voice of his colleague Sean. Take it away, Jake.
Hello out there. My name is Jake Andrews, and I'm a fourth-year student in the Honors Communication and Media Studies program at Carleton University. I have created this audio portrait for the Comms 4501 Digital Media Production course. This audio portrait, entitled Men of Nature, explores my work colleague Sean's love of his hunt camp that he shares with his best friend and explores why this particular place makes him feel at home. The aim of this project is to provide a concise and clear snapshot of Sean's experiences about a place that evokes the feelings of home, and take the listener on a journey as Sean tells his story. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy Men of Nature.
Sean Pollock. I'm from a little town that is not too far from Sherbrooke, Quebec, called Bishopton. I have moved around a lot over the course of my life. Ottawa in general does not necessarily feel like home, but it doesn't feel alien either. It's a comfortable place to be. I would say that the part of Ottawa that does feel like home is the hunt camp that I have with a friend of mine. First of all, there's the geographical location. We've hunted that property for about 21 years now. There's been a lot of good times. There's been a lot of fun that has been had. There's a lot of life-changing experiences that are all positive that have happened in that place. A number of people that go to the hunt camp, they feel like family, and to go there makes that feel like home. We were drinking at the hunt camp, and we were having a really good time. At this point we did have a bunkhouse where we slept in, but we also had a modular tent from the Army, and in that modular tent was our kitchen, and it was our dining room, and it was always filled with smoke because we had a brazier filled with wood that was burning. So If you sat, you were out of the smoke, but if you stood up, all of a sudden you were in the smoke. We were having a really good time. And one of my friends, who is fairly heavy set and not all that steady on his feet, got up and immediately tripped on a rock and fell face down into the supporting arm of the barbecue, essentially breaking the barbecue and knocking that tray off and breaking some stuff on the way down. One of my friends looked over at him, who was laying on the ground holding his head, and said, "What did the barbecue say about your mother?" We made a poster about it, about this guy fighting a barbecue. In a sense, the sort of irreverent, dry humor that that I experienced in the Army, and which goes to help make hunt camp feel like home here in Ottawa. There's one fellow who is hands down my best friend, who, when I was in the Army as a lieutenant, he was my troop warrant. He and I worked together very closely over a number of years. We developed a friendship that we still maintain. He and I are the two people that are at the hunt camp. I would say that with that person who is my best friend, that gives me a real sense of home. He also shares my love of the outdoors, so it's kind of like the whole package, him and the outdoors, and it feels very homey to me.
That was great. Thank you so much to Jake and to Sean. I've always really loved this piece because it's discussing a location that seems very unfamiliar to me. I don't do a lot of hunting, not super outdoorsy in general. So to hear the impact it has on people, it really makes me want to explore and diversify the spaces I put myself in. Now, from episode 63, As Long as I'm with Family. In this audio portrait, Natalia sits down with Helena and discusses childhood homes and the significance of the phrase, "Home is where the heart is." Go ahead, Natalia.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalia Saghbini. I'm currently a fourth year student at Carleton University. I'm taking communications and media studies, and I'm creating content for my digital media class. In this piece, you'll be hearing from Helena, who talks about a core memory from her childhood. The goal of this is for you to be able to follow Helena on her journey of finding out for herself what home really is. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy.
My first childhood home was located in Manotick in Ottawa. I still remember the address to this day. It's like embedded in the back of my brain. That childhood home was everything to me. I remember our summer family barbecues where my family would invite everybody over, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. Then when the first car would come in and my uncle would come out, I'd be waiting at the door just to welcome them in. And I remember how slowly our driveway would just get filled with so many cars, seeing as we're a pretty large family. And the barbecues would start. My dad would be doing the barbecue. My mom inside organizing the food. We would run around and play tag or, a classic game like Marco Polo. But of course, once food was ready, all the kids would come out and there would be this massive table where everybody sat together. We all had tons and tons of different meals on that table. It was fun, and things like that made it feel like home. Right now, I don't actually live at that house. We've moved multiple times since. I remember random people would start to come to the house and do some evaluation. But what really started to bother me was when they started staging, the house. They started staging my house. They removed the paintings that my mom and I bought for the house and replaced them with modern art I didn't recognize at all. They were removing pillows that we bought on a road trip down to Syracuse and replaced them with blankets we never used. And I just started to not recognize the house anymore. And that hurt. That simple for sale sign outside the house turned into a sold sign. And my heart dropped. Home is not the place where I live, it's where my family is. And I realized that maybe after the second or third home after we moved, because we had the previous home from this house, we had a very nice porch. And it was summertime and we did the barbecue again. And I realized, oh my goodness, we have the same people, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my siblings, my parents, the same smiles, the same good times, the laughs as we did at the first house. And that's when I realized it wasn't because of the first house we had the memories and the smiles. It was the people. So I realized, to me, it's where my family is and it's not the home itself. If I have family with me, I can call myself at home.
Thank you so much for that. I think a lot of us going into university specifically have this fracturing of our childhood home, whether we can return to it or not. And it's just a very important conversation to have. So thank you for that. Lastly, we have Hometown from episode 66. We'll hear work done by Aidan in conversation with their partner, discussing their hometown, Perth.
Hey there, listeners. My name is Aidan Donnelly, and I'm in my 4th year of the Honors Communications and Media Studies program at Carleton University. In this audio portrait, you will hear my best friend, roommate, and partner recount his personal journey of home, sharing the memories that hold a special place in his heart and the stories of the community that he calls home. My goal for this piece was to emphasize the significance of community and the profound sense of belonging that comes with considering an entire town, the place you proudly call home. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy it.
I was not prepared for that question. Oh, well, when I think of home, I always think of Perth, where I was born and raised. Growing up, I lived in a house that was 10 minutes outside of our small town, where we had lots of land and lots of room to play, and home was always having fun and where I played with my family and friends. Some of my favorite memories from my childhood home are centered around family game night, where my dad, mom, and sister would all sit down and we would play different board games and card games, Monopoly and Clue, and I guess when we were really young, Candyland. Perth is a small community. There's only 6,000 people that live there, and the sign that says 6,000 has said 6,000 since I was 5 years old. There's a big sense of, I guess, community, but there's a big sense of family within Perth. So whenever you're out in Perth, it can take forever just to walk down the street because you'll end up seeing 100 people you know, and everybody wants to stop and talk and see how you're doing and what you're up to these days. So it gives you a real sense of belonging. In Perth, they do a big fall fair where there's a bunch of fair rides, and they put on a bunch of different forms of entertainment, like the tractor pull and the truck pull and lawnmower racing. And on Saturday nights, they do the demolition derby, where people just run beat up cars into each other until they stop running. I always grew up going with friends and family, and the entire community attends. It's always been one of the more big and eventful nights in town where everybody gets together and just has lots of fun. When I was younger, we always used to go with the same group of friends. And since growing up, I still go with that same group of friends. And it's always been a time that we all get back together to enjoy something from our childhood. And every year I go, it just reminds me of the happy memories that I have of it from when I was younger. making my next home. I'm not sure what that looks like, but I've always found that a home it's a feeling that you get at your happiest, I guess, or relaxed, and you can unwind.
Thank you so much, Aidan. I think a big theme of this episode was making place and creating it, and not being controlled by your space, but really constructing it to be what you need it to be. So once again, thank you to Jannelle, Jake, Natalia, and Aidan for these great audio portraits. And before I sign off, a couple of quick notes. A reminder that what we've listened to here on this show is only a fraction of the work produced in association with this project. If you're interested in checking out more, have a look at theplaceofsound.ca, where you're not only able to hear this audio work, but also see some of the original photos and writing that students produced to go along with the audio. There's also a featured work section on the site's blog where you can access some notable individual projects. And in the classes section, you can have a look at the portfolio websites designed by students themselves, which host every project produced in this course. And lastly, under the Listen link, you're able to access the show's archive and listen back to any episode of the show you'd like to hear. Next episode, we'll be running through our favorite soundscape compositions to carry on this 2024 retrospective. But in the meantime, keep your ear out for upcoming episodes of the show, which air on CKCU Radio every other Monday at 6:30 p.m. and are available wherever you get your podcasts. Well, thanks all for tuning in, and until next time, this has been The Place of Sound. Happy listening.